A lot of low clouds this morning as the storm system still kind of spinning overhead, but we're kind of in a big old gap with some sunshine today, which is certainly nice to have on a September afternoon. Still some wave action, off to the southeast, and the cumulus kind of undulating over the mountains. That's where I've got the time lapse going today, so you'll see that running at a 5-second interval, so about 150 times normal speed. You can certainly see the snow that's still on the peaks. We're getting to the point where it's going to be there the rest of the season, especially on the north side and in the shade. I heard lots of planes this morning, but not so much this afternoon or early afternoon. But the skies have certainly cleared off, and so there's not a whole lot of engineering going on at the moment. Little orange Learjet. First time I've seen that puppy. Had some other planes flying through, but he's on descent. You can tell those engines are coasting. He's zipping along too. Just had a commercial plane move on through here without a trail. I haven't seen a single contrail today, or a chemtrail. We have a little bit of a thunderhead on the backside of this low that's been in place, trying to work on top of us. But not really an exceptional day by any measure. Had just a few hundredths last night. As we saw, our low was right at 33 degrees. If we had had any less humidity in place, it could have been a brutally cold night, at least for the plants. But otherwise, it looks good. Snow's melting up high, and the time lapse is going to look pretty much completely over the mountain. There's not a lot else to look at, and we'll see this thunderhead kind of roll overhead as it approaches from the northwest, kind of behind my trees here. So that's about it. That's about it on this 26th of September, 2012. Got a little thunder action going on this afternoon. One to the southwest, a little darker one to the northwest. This one's been here every bit of 90 minutes, and it just has not advanced to the south. So I had to come out here and see just exactly what's going on, if we're going to get anything or not. Because a little water would be nice, but certainly got some rain on the mountaintop there. This puppy's in a little bit of shower, and with thunder around, it'd sure be nice to get a little bit of rain. Planes have been present today, haven't seen a single trail. Still have the low-flying aircraft though. Their count is probably a fifth of what it is on an active day. I've seen maybe 3 planes and heard maybe 15. But I'm kind of winding down. I've got the time lapse still going over the mountain, although I'm thinking I might want to swing it out here over the valley floor to catch the action of these thunderheads. And again, it's just kind of a pain in the butt to move, so we might just leave it alone. In any case, with storms all around, a few rain showers here and there, and a little setting sun on the mountains. That might be just about it for the day. Can hear the thunder rumbling off in the distance. All right, everybody. Keep looking up. Probably still do a look at the satellite before the night's through, but that'll be about it. Look at that nice little sun shaft, little sunbeam coming through. Our atmosphere is a beautiful thing. Beautiful, beautiful thing. Bring it on. Bring it on. So hail is what we're getting. Crazy. Hail. All the way up the mountain. Nice, heavy, wet hail. Who would have thought? So we got a little hail out of this puppy. The rain is welcome. Looks like it's receding off towards the east a little bit. And it's just kind of this low. It has a couple of centers that are rotating, and it's just this little one right, boom, right there. It blew up, got us a little precip. Out in the Pacific, you can still see a few chemtrails. Find the cursor, get it back into where I'd like it to be. But right in there, you can see a few trails. They're a good distance off the coast yet. So they're engineering this next inbound storm. In fact, you can see the trails lacing through the tail end of the cool front. And then some out ahead of this. These are not nearly as clear. But I'm just curious to see what the radar looks like. Probably not going to have that. On the radar, it was just this tiny little cell at the tip of the finger where it's pointed. Notice in the last couple of frames, it kind of holds back to the west a little bit. Just holds back. Kind of like this one does right here. Holds back to the west. And so, under that, it was worthy of a little hail. It kind of surprised me that we were able to realize that. What's our time? Coming up on 0043 GMT or 643 Mountain. But there isn't a whole lot happening over the western states, or even over the eastern states. You know, back out over the east today, we've got that cool front draped on through. Some good rains in Kansas showing up last night. We have a myriad of holes around which the weather is configured, would be the best term. And then activity off the California coast. But this is our storm out west, kind of winding down. It's really kind of an uneventful day. Here are those trails out in the Pacific. You can see those smearing and stretching out. So they're measuring, they're working something out in here. It probably has to do with this next inbound storm. If we go to the GFS, here's our storm over Colorado. Another wave working through the Great Lakes states. But really the trails are just on this little teeny little ripple. This little guy. And that so seems to be what they prefer. Is working subtle energetic differences that magnify the effects days down the road. And this is going to be the first truly wintertime vortex out over the Gulf of Alaska, and we'll still end up with relatively mild weather over the states in the meanwhile, especially as we get on into this coming weekend. The Great Lakes states are going to be an exception, and I'm just hearing more and more people saying, "Ooh, this feels like a bad winter." So by Sunday morning with this gorgeous high sitting out over California, Oregon, beautiful fall weather. If it just weren't so dry, out there, it'd probably be a more welcome event. And then next week, probably be a ton of trailing. beginning, probably beginning Sunday late and into Monday, as this low then begins to advance into the Mountain West, California first of all. So I'd anticipate a lot of trailing to begin early next week out in that direction. Little puddles of water. Got sunset on the west. And then our storm off to the east. Some embedded lightning continuing. It's beautiful. We get all excited about the rain here. Get all excited about it. And then it's cleared off to the east. So this is probably it. Once this departs, and it looked like on the rain gauge, it was just shy of a 1/4 inch. A good chunk of it was still ice and in the funnel and hadn't yet melted into the column of the rain gauge. We look out to the west. This is all dissipating storm. This is still growing. But better get off the road, eh? Still some buildups on the horizon. That cool 40-degree air is kind of settled in. And here's our tops. When we see this happen, we know the development is going to be minuscule. And usually what happens is we end up with just the collapse of the updraft that's in place. And what moisture is there then falls. And then an aspect of it remains suspended in the form of clouds. And then the vapor moves on to the next target, to the next state, the next thunderstorm. But still raining up high, and I bet we've got some fresh hail up there, as all this on the south side would melt it off today. So there's water up there in those crevices that'll end up coming down into the alluvial aquifer, and that's our drinking water in just a few weeks' time. Let it rain, let it rain, let it rain. '27th of September, 2011. Waking up to some lenticulars on top of these mountains. They're not real lenticulars because we wouldn't have typical cumulus along the bottom of them with the dome top above them. This aspect being the lenticular, and this being the, what was that in Sesame Street, the one that doesn't belong. It's just, it's not right. It should be completely smooth if it's a true lenticular. I've got time lapse on it, so we'll see how it plays. Didn't run yesterday's video. It was just a busy day at the house, and so we'll probably combine yesterday's, the 26th and the 27th, together. But we're on the edge of this storm. There's still kind of plenty of moisture around. Lots and lots of humidity and dew last night. And some waves up there. Nothing too extraordinary showing up this morning. We will take the sunshine. That is very, very welcome. So it's the rain at that. But yeah, these lenticulars are a little odd. They're just a little bit strange, as they often were. 7 o'clock this morning. It's now about 9:20. They were huge, huge and multi-layered. You like those? Not like that. They're much, much smaller now than they were then. And they're all energetic. Some different energetic environment versus wind rolling over the mountaintops. So other forces at play in the clouds these days. Other forces at play. All right. This is just because I never get tired of looking at the iridescence in these clouds. How much of that's natural and how much of that is a result of the millions of tons of stuff that's been dumped into the air every year. I don't suppose we'll know for sure. But it's just kind of cool to look at either way. And it's certainly there. You don't have to look that hard. Anytime you can hide the sun behind an object and you've got these thin clouds in place, you're going to see it. You're going to see it. That iridescent glow. Looks like an oily sheen. Said a couple of low-flying big planes overhead. I was not able to grab the camera when I like to have had a look to see what it was, but nevertheless, low bin. This was a big one. This may have been a 747. Anyway, you can kind of see the waves that are still resident in the clouds, especially this part, versus say over here where we have a different pattern. Lenticular type clouds are still hugging the mountaintops, and then as we come off into the distance, you can see some of these waves. In fact, they kind of fan out like this. So there's some central radial point back over the mountains. And then off to the south where we were looking at the iridescence, these guys are still present. And they're still probably the peak of some kind of a wave action that's rolling through the atmosphere. This side of the cloud is different than this. And so look way out over the valley floor, and then we have these towering cumulus. And in fact, it's not terribly towering that much, but it still has this little hood thing. It still has the shield on the top. I think this is what is so different about clouds these days. And when you time-lapse these things, these clouds are rolling, they're rotating, they're spinning, they're spiraling, they're not bubbling. And it's that spiraling turbid action. There's more of the waves. It's funny how they're contrary, where they literally end at this point. This side we've got the wave, and this side we do not. And then up in here, this is totally different, but that's where our iridescence remains. Maybe if we bring down the exposure bias, we can pull out some more color. We're down 2 f-stops. All electricity we burn, except for photovoltaic in this country, comes from some rotating generator. So if you've got a cloud rotating, it's going to create a current. And that current is going to attract some kind of a charge, and that charge may be manifest in the water. Get out of the street here. Spot right here. Something's happening right here. You can see the clouds on this side. The center, very different than over here. Oodles and oodles of moisture still left overhead. You can kind of see what'll end up being kind of like standing waves on the satellite imagery. Clouds developing over the San Juans. We've had a few jets pass over, but no trails. No trails on this day. Let's keep it that way. I know they've begun over California. They're up over North Dakota, all the way down south into Oklahoma. But California's going to have an intense trail weekend coming up. Today's just Thursday, but these things are not that difficult to forecast. It's stupidly simple to see where they're doing and why they're doing it. Alright, I'll be back outside in a while. So pretty much the moment I step outside, I hear the jet, but when is that not the case? This game is just that far along. We had a few sprinkler work come through, no more than a trace out of it, the better part of 90 minutes ago. And then I was just watching the time lapse. Well, not watching it, but adjusting the camera. And there's just these showers off in the distance. And wherever there's thunder showers, well, we have planes. Got an opening up here. You can usually spot the planes running right up the gut, or right up the opening. I thought of what I really came out here to show you, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to do it, was a divide right in here. And it essentially was this thunderstorm split in half. And I just don't have that perspective from this location that I had hoped I had. But it was essentially we have holes. We probably have the counterpart up in here, and I can kind of see it open it up. I can iris down a touch, and you can see that it's a hole. And in these holes, the weather tends to pivot around. You see it very clearly on time lapse. And it's crazy, all these TV stations have time-lapse camera, but half the shot or more is pointed at the ground and at the traffic, and it's a weather cam. Who the bloody hell cares what the cars are doing? Give us the sky. And even then, on days when they're laden with trails, they just don't notice it. They don't see it, and it's kind of crazy. But in any case, this hole is then aligned up with this axis running right through here. And I kind of point those out on satellite just about every time I do that. There's some crazy trails going off the coast of Oregon, and looking for a big trail weekend in California coming up. Kind of like a center point here, and a hole. And then, well, on the wider shot, you begin to see how we'll have some clouds spiking. And it's just all of this moving geometry that is stationed and aligned by the chemtrails. And then they kind of provide the aiming mechanism to be able to get all of this geometry in the proper orientation. In any case, there's one of these holes. It's different, you know, this hole is of a different type. I hit the power button instead of the iris button. Yeah, but these holes, this is a little bit different than this guy. Different size, different kind of make. You can hear a plane off in the distance. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see if he pops up through this hole up here. And then getting some of the low sun angle and some of the topography around here. But up in this hole is where I'd expect to see our plane zipping through. In any case, getting towards the end of the day, I'll make sure if I can't get this into Final Cut tonight. Just a lot of other projects going on in town. Alright, another example of one of these pivot points or holes is right here. You can see the opening. You can see that it's a square shape. You can almost have something happening here as well. Notice how this side of it you have, this is coupled and this is coupled. And then clouds coming off in this direction and coming off in this direction. When you have two holes anchored, then you can create a radial. We have clouds coming off on one side, the other holes are responsible for this side, and then coming out to the south. If you look at the satellite imagery, it's unmistakable that we have this kind of action happening. But that's holes. And I'm going to be pointing these out to you forever now. I mean, once you start looking for them, I want you to start seeing them. Then you begin to catch and grasp the geometry that's at work here. And then you'll see the relevance of the chemtrails in the whole story, in the whole game.